Okay, everybody, we're on week 2. So on week 2, we're going to work on the famous pose Chaturanga, okay? It's basically a fancy push-up. So what we want to really think about is building our upper body strength before we subject ourselves to trying to lower all the way down to the floor. A lot of common mistakes that happen in Chaturanga is a sagging belly. We kind of just flip out our tailbones in a really anterior tilted pelvic position, which then does this to us, and we kind of lose all the control and dump all that weight into the front of our shoulders. So over time, throughout the practice of yoga, a lot of people have complained about anterior shoulder pain. And most likely, not always, but just a common mistake in yoga, especially in a vinyasa yoga practice, is to dump in to that chaturanga. So I'm just going to show you a couple things not to do, and then we're going to go over how we would build our upper body strength with push-up progressions, okay? So things not to do in chaturanga would be, when you're in that plank pose, to just kind of whale yourself down, okay? So when you're lowering down, you always want to have this nice line of control. And what we also want to be able to do too, to build the eccentric strength, the elongated strength of the musculature, is to be able to reverse that. So even if you can't reverse it from your toes like you lower down, we'd work on bending our heels in towards our butt, pressing into the tops of our thighs and our hands to lift ourselves back up as a unit, okay? Now, a common mistake in that is to kind of, again, lead with the heart and kind of flail ourselves up, okay? So we want to avoid those movements so that we're not putting stress on other body parts that over time could create injury or just a sense of not feeling good, okay? So working on that push-up progression, the easiest way to begin is in standing. So you can find a wall, and get your hands wider than shoulder width distance apart, and get yourself up on your toes. So again, a common mistake here is to kind of flare out our butt. We don't want to do that. We want to think about our tailbone just staying in line with the crown of our head and the heels of our feet, and then lowering our chest to the wall and back up. So you could do a couple repetitions like this, and then if that feels good, coming to maybe like a tabletop surface. So I don't have one of those available. I'm just going to stack up here some bolsters. And if I wanted to do a tabletop progression, I'd again come onto my toes and lower. You can think about using the back of a chair. You can think about using the seat of the chair. Both of those versions are going to be different heights for you to work into, okay? The next step, once, the wall or a countertop, back of a chair, seat of a chair, once about 30 repetitions of that becomes easy, then think about getting yourself down to the ground and coming into a modified push-up position. So modified position, push-up position looks like this from your knees. You can have your toes up or your toes down. That part doesn't really much matter. What matters is that the crown of my head, so the top of my head, stays in line all the way down to my tailbone. Okay, so that torso region, it remains in a neutral position. We don't have an extreme anterior tilt and we don't have an extreme posterior tilt. We just have a nice long line of energy, okay? So what you'd work on then is coming into that modified push-up position, bending the elbows and lowering all the way down. And then from here, you'd see if you could press yourself back up. If you don't want to lower all the way down, then you just do a push-up. Okay, so we're just building up that strength to allow us to move through what we know as a traditional chaturanga. Okay, so also too, if you feel like you're strong enough to do that chaturanga, do it. But then challenge yourself to curl your toes under, press through your heels, press through your palms, and see if you could reverse it back up. Okay, so that's a progression if you're already beyond the push-up progression, okay? Something to think about doing. Okay, so that's our push-ups. Excuse me. And it's always a good idea just to have that common strength, like squats and heel raises, lunges. Those are very good body weighted exercises for us to be doing every day. So it kind of just adds onto the bonus of incorporating our yoga practice with it. Okay, moving on to being on our bellies. This is known as extension of the spine. Okay, so this is a prone position, meaning that you're laying on your belly. One of the simplest forms of extension of your spine is known as Sphinx pose, okay? So in this pose, you're on your forearms, your hands are straight out in front of you. You're thinking about your shoulder being in line with your middle finger. From here, the shoulders do release down the back and a little bit in towards the spine. Instead of arching our head up, we're just going to think about it being long. So the gaze is gently at the thumbs so that the crown of the head still points up. And again, we still can find this longer line of energy through our spine. To become more active, we press down through the tops of our feet, the shoelace sides of our feet, and allow ourselves to draw the chest a little further away from the ground. Good. From here, we can take that into a little seal wave by placing the hands at 10 and 2 o'clock. So we tent the fingertips, the head goes down to the ground, and as we inhale, we start to peel away, maybe straighten the arms, and then come right back down. Good, peel away, and come back right down. Now, when I say peel away, what we're peeling away is our chest, our heart, and the top of our ribs, okay? So as that head begins to pick up, everything begins to follow, finding a little bit more extension, and then placing it right back down onto the ground. So our seal pose can then change into our baby cobra, or Bhujangasana for the Sanskrit terminology. So again, we're going to find some definite pressure into the tops of our feet, and we're going to think about our tailbone still being towards our heels. When we press into our hands, our shoulder blades, they're going to come in and then down towards the spine. And we'll give this nice gentle peel again of our heart lifting away from the ground and maybe bringing the hands up. Good. From here, lower. And this time, just rest. Let your forehead stack on top of your hands. Maybe give the legs a little sway from side to side. And then release back down. So taking that back bend or extension of your spine a little bit further, we would move into tall cobra. Okay, so tall cobra, the hands are still in line with the chest, fingertips spread nice and wide, and then pressing all the way back up. And if anybody's had physical therapy, this kind of looks like what we call a prone press up or extension and lying. So that's what we're doing here, just a deeper extension of the lumbar and thoracic spine. And then we lower down. Good. Again, we can inhale, lift up. And then lower down. Let's do it one more time. Inhale, lift up. And then lower down. Good. Now from here, the full version of the sequence of a vinyasa is to have upward facing dog as your back bend. So upward facing dog just means that we're lifting up into our tall cobra and then really pressing hard into the tops of our feet so that we can lift our thighs. Everything is kind of moving up towards the center of our body. So as we lift up into that tall cobra, we then press into the tops of our feet, lift our thighs, expand our heart, and again, think about the crown of your head reaching up. So you can't see it much, but my thighs are completely lifted off the ground. And then I'd lower them and come back down. So I'll do that one more time. As you press into your hands and lift your chest up, you then press into the tops of your feet and lift your heart up. Tall cobra. This can eventually transition into your downward facing dog. Okay? So that is our prone extensions. So we have our push-up progressions and we have our prone spinal extensions, okay? Moving on into some cars like we did the last time is controlled articular rotations. So we have those last time with the neck and the shoulder. This time we're going to do the hip and knee. If you need a wall or a chair to hold on to, I will suggest that. You're going to not see my face probably too well, but I want you to see my knee here. So as I bring my knee up into my chest, I'm going to rotate just my right toes towards the left. So see how my knee is staying nice and neutral? As I press that down to the ground, I'm going to take my toes out to the right. And again, my knee is staying nice and neutral as I lift it back up. Okay, so I'm going to move back so you can see my whole foot. So knee comes up, toes rotate towards the left, just the toes. Knee stays neutral. You press it down like you're pressing through concrete. Switch the toes to turn outward to the right, and then bring the knee back up. So it's in, down, out, up. In, down, out, up. Okay? So that would be your knee controlled articular rotation. A lot of people think that elbows and knees, they just do this. And they do, but they do have a little movement. They do have that little bit of rotation. So it's a good idea to kind of influence your body to know that and do that. Okay, so moving on to our hip. I'm going to do the left hip and the right hip for this one. So again, if you need a wall or something to hold on to, go ahead and hold on with your left hand first. Bring your right knee up into your chest again. Good. Make sure your toes are up towards your shin. Now open that leg up into external rotation. From here, drop that knee. This is internal rotation. The knee, the thigh, and the inside of the foot are all going towards the ground, and we're making a circle all the way back to meet our left knee. So now the right heel is in towards my butt. Good. Now I'm going to give a little bit of hip extension by pushing that foot back, and then I'm going to come back into that external rotation like I'm jumping over a big hurdle, and then put it down on the ground. Good. So now if you were to do that from the left, a lot of times when we do extension, we tend to, again, tip the hips forward. We don't want to do that. We just want to move. Think about just moving from your butt cheek. That's kind of a good analogy. Just move from your butt cheek there, okay? So now you would hold on with your right hand if you needed it, bringing your left knee up to your chest. Start to externally rotate that leg. Drop it to internal rotation and swivel it all the way around to meet your right knee. Good, now this is the part where we tend to dump into the lower back. Try to move just from your butt cheek as you kick the foot behind you. Open it back up and jump over that hurdle. Put it down on the ground, okay? So you can do those more than once. You could do them about 3 to 5 times, and they could be just your general warm-up in the morning. You can add in your neck and your shoulder, your hips and your knees, and your wrists and your ankles, and you're good to go, okay? So moving into a little modified vinyasa here. We're going to come up to the top of our mat. So we did sun breaths and forward folds last week. So again, if you need those blocks, need those jars of sauce or water bottles to bring the earth closer to you, go ahead and grab those. From here, we'll inhale and reach our fingertips all the way up to the sky, nice and high, Urdhva Hastasana. As you exhale, we're going to push the hips back in our hip hinge to a forward fold. As we inhale, we'll lengthen Ardha Uttanasana. Remember, you can bring your hands all the way up to your thighs to achieve this. Then as you exhale, bend your knees so deeply that your hands can touch the ground and step back into plank pose. From plank pose, we're going to drop our knees down to the ground, untuck our toes. Bend our elbows and lower our bodies all the way down. As we inhale, we'll press up into that baby cobra, Bhujangasana, and then exhale, fold down. Bring the heels in towards the butt, press into the thighs, press into the hands, lift back up. Drop your toes, lift your hips up into the sky, downward facing dog. Taking a few breaths here, inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. One more time, inhale through the nose, exhale through the nose. From here, go ahead, bend your knees a little bit and start to take some nice tiny little walks all the way back up to the top of your mat. Again, straighten out your spine to the best of your ability by pressing your hips back and reaching the crown of the head forward. And then as you fold, bend your knees, tuck your chin right into your chest. Nice and slowly come all the way up to stand. Take your arms with you as you reach up into the sky. And then pull the hands together right into the center of your chest. So that's a modified version of a vinyasa flow. We're going to do it one more time, and I'll explain a little bit more of what you should feel in downward facing dog this time. Inhale, reach those arms straight up into the sky, nice and high. And then again, exhale, press your hips back, reach your heart forward, come down towards the earth. Inhale, find length from the hips throughout the crown of the head. Exhale, refold, plant the palms, and step back into your plank position. Holding your plank position, drop your knees down to the ground. Untuck your toes, bend your elbows, lower all the way down. Pull the heart up nice and slowly into that baby cobra. And then exhale, release. Bring the heels in towards the butt. Press into the thighs, press into the hands. Lift it back up. Drop your toes, press into your hands, and step into downward facing dog. So, to make downward facing dog a little bit easier, you can take your feet as wide as the mat is, lowering your heels down towards the ground. As you do that, there's a lift on your thighs. There's a lift on the lower belly in towards the spine, and the biceps come right by the ears as we spread and kind of press that earth away from us with the hands. Good, so you can stay here or start to move the feet a little bit closer together, and we're just gonna do some heel kicks. So we did this last week in standing at the top of our mat with our blocks, and we're just gonna do it right here now. Good. Good. Now, as we bring that right heel in towards our butt, we're gonna hold it, and we're gonna move that knee all the way up to the top of our mat. This is called a runner's lunge, okay? So the left leg is really long. Right foot is down onto the ground, and we're gonna think about the right knee coming right over the right ankle, okay? Then, again, we still wanna think about our hips pressing back and the crown of the head reaching forward, so we get this nice long line through our torso. From here, we're gonna soften our left knee down to the ground, untuck our toes, and bring ourselves upright. Okay, so this might be it. Maybe you're really comfortable here and you don't have to go any further. If you want, you can start to incorporate the arms by bringing them up towards the sky. Now, when you're in this position, again, we tend to dump. We let those booties kind of kick out and dump into it. But here, think about squeezing your left butt cheek and pressing it towards the front of your mat as you find length through the rib cage and out through the arms. Good. From here, we'll bring our hands back down to the ground, curl our left toes under, press back through that runner's lunge position, and then bring ourselves up into high lunge. So when you come up into high lunge, it's really shoulders over hips. We're bending into that front knee, and if that back knee bends a little bit, who cares? If you can engage and press strong through the left heel, it's also great. But work with your body. This distance of your legs may be super foreign to you. You may have never kind of had your legs this wide before. So, we're really taking a distance using the whole length of our mat as we're in this high lunge position. So it could feel a little weird. Work with it, and if this leg's a little straighter, who cares? Slowly work into it and maybe just ebb and flow in and out. And then if you want to hold the static version, go ahead, lift your hands up. Good. From here, cartwheel your hands down. Step back into your plank pose. Lift your hips up, downward facing dog. Good. So we'll do the same thing on the other side. Our left heel is going to come towards our butt, and we're going to bring that knee up to the top of the mat. Good. So we have runner's lunge first. Then we have low lunge as we soften the right knee down and bring the torso up. Good. From here, arms reach up towards the sky. Right butt cheek squeezes and presses forward. And I'd like to say to take like 3 to 5 breaths here, just so that you're starting to expose your body to new positions without overwhelming it. Good, and then we'll take our hands down to the ground. Curl the right toes up and lift again. And then bring that torso right up to stand. Coming right back into that high lunge version. Good, from here, bring the hands back down. Step back into plank pose. Lift the hips back up. Take a few breaths here. And this time we're going to kick ourselves in the butt with the right heel. Bring it back to the top of the mat. Remember, if your foot stops here, and that's as far as it goes, use your right hand, help it up, okay? From this runner's lunge position, we're going to come right up into standing. Good, we're going to straighten our right leg, and we're going to pull the left foot in a little bit. So the left foot is going to be on a 45-degree angle, meaning that your left big toe is going to face the top corner of the left mat. So your feet are a little bit closer together than they were in the high lunge pose, and the back foot is now flat. The hips are going to want to rotate to the left. We're going to invite them to rotate back towards the front of the space. Again, there's still a shoulder over hips analogy here. As we bend into the right knee, we press through the outside edge of the left foot and reach our hands up to the sky for Warrior One pose, Virabhadrasana 1. Good. From the Warrior One pose, we keep the right foot where it is. We start to pivot that left foot out, walking it a little bit wider. So now my left toes are pointing towards the left edge of my mat, and I'm pressing through the outside of my left foot as I bend a little deeper into my right knee. Good. Again, shoulders are still over hips. My tailbone is still facing towards the ground. And I'm going to reach my arms out nice and long and maybe gaze over the middle finger of my right hand for my Warrior Two pose, Virabhadrasana 2. Good. From here, I'm going to circle my hands down, step back into my plank pose, and lift my hips back up for downward facing dog. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. One more. Good. This time as you inhale, kick yourself in the butt with the left foot. Step it all the way up to the top of the mat. Come back into your runner's lunge. Move yourself all the way up into your high lunge. And then go ahead, straighten that left leg. Walk that right foot in a little bit. So now we're in our Warrior One stance with the left foot forward and right leg back. Again, my foot isn't completely turned out. My toes are facing towards the top corner edge of my mat on, guesstimate, a 45-degree angle. As that happens, I'm going to bend into my left knee, reach my arms up to the sky. And again, I'm still going to think about shoulders being over the hips. I really want to press long through this leg, finding that nice line of energy here. Good. And then as I open up and start to pivot my feet, I'm going to walk that right foot out. Keep those left toes forward and press into the outside edge really long through that right leg as I bend into this left knee, finding that external rotation, reaching my arms out nice and long, finding the extension of my heart through my fingertips in Warrior Two pose. Take one more inhale in here. Exhale, we're going to cartwheel the hands down to the ground. Frame that left foot, step back into plank pose. Downward facing dog. From here, go ahead, drop your knees down to the ground, untuck your toes, press your hips back for Balasana, Child's Pose. Then nice and slowly walk yourself up to a comfortable seated position. Maybe crossing the legs in front of you, whatever feels best. and just placing your hands on your lap. So we went over a lot of things today that can be broken down into something to do every day. So we have a push-up progression, we have our hip and knee cars, we have our lunge sequence of runner's lunge, low lunge, and high lunge, and then we have our warrior sequence of warrior 1 and 2. There's a third warrior. We'll get into that shortly. But for now, maybe segment today's class and practice a little bit of it each day to build that strength and become more confident, more aware of the movements and shapes that your body is making. Whatever it is, always remember to breathe and take your time. There's no perfect pose. There's no perfect practice. That's why we call it a practice. So enjoy the segmentation of the videos and practice as you wish. Until then, namaste.